Okay. That's a rough start, huh? If it started, um, I am getting a little bit of a rough start. So I will say that if you heard that music, I don't have the rights to it. And please don't, yeah, please, don't cut my thing. Anyway, it was playing before I began to talk, so maybe it will not affect this. So, greetings to you. Happy Monday. It is, oh, what a wonderful day. I am here in my place finally, and just making it do what it do. I hope you had a fabulous weekend. I will say to you, mine's was good in that both Saturday as well as Sunday, I had the opportunity to be in company and communion with my sister friends, girlfriends, and it was, I don't know about y'all, but I am I am so appreciative of the moments that we have. And then one of the things that I noticed too, y'all, this is just me, but I am so out of touch with a lot of stuff. It's so amazing. Good morning, Walker. Grand rising to you as well. I can be so out of touch with so much. I'm just sitting there and I don't know. I think that one of my friends could see on my face that I was just so out of it. Like, when I made a comment about one thing and they ran down the road with it. And I'm still sitting there thinking, like, who is that y'all talking about? Who is that? Who is that? Like, I'm so behind because I don't watch television. And so if I don't watch television, if I'm not the sports girl, I mean, I love sports, don't get me wrong, I do. But I'm hard pressed to remember anybody's name, or it doesn't, I don't have a filing system for it either. So when they start accessing and talking about stuff that happened in the past, it's like, oh. So, so I sat there and just kind of absorbed it all in and thought to myself, okay, check to see who Labrie is or Labre, or check to see who this person is, check to see. I was just sitting there like with my little notepad and my checklist thinking to myself, okay, and who were LeBron's kids again? And it was kind of one of those things. So I I'm gonna catch up. No, I'm not gonna catch up. I don't even know why I'm telling that story. It was beautiful, and I felt seen, and it was good. It was good. It was good to be in the company of my sisters. So I am looking forward to this year as it unfolds because, I'm taking on some new stuff, which is just, fabulous too. So I hope you had a great weekend. Walker, I hope you didn't work too hard. I hope that, and I trust that all is as it should be. So, great, 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 great. So I am really like, yesterday I had, okay, so yesterday, because I had a meeting afterwards, I had no intention of staying on my thing as long as I did. And that I stayed on as long as I did put me back a little late at the place where I was supposed to go. And and so that was interesting. I got there when I got there, and they were already in motion, and that was good as well. So it is, all of that is just working on my mind. Good morning, Michael. You're on your way to court this morning. Okay, I am praying for you. I trust that everything is working out well. I am already like claiming that, better, even better, beyond what you perceived as possible is unfolding for you now. So I don't know anything, but I am trusting that all things are working for your highest and best good. And it's so interesting because sometimes we think we know what we want, exactly what we want, only to find out that, uh, what I wanted was minuscule in comparison to how it unfolded for me. And so, yeah, just staying open to the possibilities of what can happen, and just stay in a state of trust and wonderful anticipation. This morning, as I thought about some things that I got some pending obligations, financial obligations that are coming up, and it's so interesting because what I find is that if I stop and wait on what I think I need, then it I don't know that it comes. And so what I do is I keep moving forward. It's kind of like the progression, and spirit catches up to me as I move. And so I just am, I am learning more and more about faithing as a verb, as an action, as an activity. Like, let me not put in my own barriers in my way, my own assumptions in my way, but just keep moving forward with the anticipation that all things are working for my good. Good morning, Sandra. How are you, dear? That all things are working for my good. So I will tell y'all this funny. I hate going to funerals. There's a part of me that hates going to funerals, but there is another part of me that loves seeing people who I grew up with. And at this one, this funeral, this guy says to me, he was like, "Oh, I used to have a crush on you." Now, it's so funny. I love when people tell you that. "Oh, I used to have a crush on you." And I said, "Did you really?" And I was like, dude, he was just too. And back in the day, the vernacular that we used was cool. I was like, "Oh, you was just too cool for me." Like, if it would be like one of those things that as I saw him, I was walking on just regular ground, and he was walking on one of those transport things that you see at the airport. So he seemed to be walking on one of those things, and I seemed to just be keeping normal step. And I don't, I think that we have an idea of what we have different ideas about what is attractive to others. And in the animal kingdom, you will see a bird, or you'll see a bull or any kind of animal, the one animal, a male animal, might do some kind of dance in order to attract the female. They might fluff their feathers up and do, or, or start pouncing around to show their dominance and all of that stuff. And you never know what that female is thinking. Like, we could be looking at y'all like, yeah, okay, no, not you, right? Because that don't even look it just doesn't resonate with you in the same way. And so when he was saying that he had a crush on me, I was like thinking like, well, I don't know that anything that I perceived would have made me be feel anything attracted or whatever to that scenario. I don't know. It's just really interesting how we process stuff. So it's all good though. It's all good. Hindsight is amazing. It's amazing. So everything is perfect. And I don't know. I have gone up to somebody and said, "Ooh, I had a crush on you back in the day." I have done that. Because I had crushes on people. But did I say anything, or was I even available to it? So these things are wonderful to me to be in proximity to that, and to, yeah, just do that dance. It was good. It was good though. So I was so happy to see the people who I did see. And then when you think about, like, as I think about it, I think about, I think about so much as it relates to that. I'm not going to belabor that whole thing. So it was a wonderful weekend for me, insightful and busy, and I got a lot of hugs. I love hugs. I got a lot of hugs, and I got some conversation, not deep conversation, but some conversation, and I learned some more about myself. One of as I was talking to one of my friends from school, I said to him, I said, and I may tell y'all this too. I am not the person who is able to juggle a whole bunch of different stuff at the same time, right? I don't know about you, but as I was telling them this, I was like, I'm amazed at people who can have a conversation going over here and be able to listen to somebody else's conversation at the same time. To which another and his wife responded to me saying, "Oh, I can listen to about 5 different conversations and never lose track of the one I'm having with you." and the people who are really observant and who are able to just kind of assess all of these different things, it was amazing to hear how easily people maneuver in situations like that. And it was just an amazing insight. And so I started seeing, and I've tried to work on this before, because I've got friends, I think I mentioned this before, I've got friends who are able to do the same thing, and I am not. I think you wrote it the first time correctly. You said, "Drew, the aura comes off of you, makes you so beautiful." What? Aura is spelled A-U-R-A. You did it right the first time, but I'm not sure what you mean, Drew the aura. But thank you. That's so special. That's good. So anyway, and it's funny because I think that I get I get so many people that tell me I look so much better in person than I do on this thing. So if you're already thinking that, that's great. Yay! So anyway, so it was a good experience. It was a good weekend, and I started thinking about all the people who have added to my life in ways that can be very subtle or that can be very overt. I can recall people who have said to me, the same kind of thing. And we sometimes don't realize how impactful our presence is, just our presence. So yeah, blame it on the autocorrect. It's all good. So just our presence is, in and of itself, so wonderful. One of the things that I do, and Michael, as you head down the court, I will tell you that I think it is a powerful thing to send your spirit before you even get there. Like, just sending your spirit and straightening your own path as you walk it. Knowing that all things are good and people are receiving you, and embracing you with a smile, right? And this is how I do. I send love before me. I'm a drench the courtroom with love. I'm a drench the judge and everybody else with love. And so by the time I walk in the room, when you talk about an aura, I'm stepping into an aura that I've sent in there in the first place. And so it's my hope that people are already vibing on a vibe that I've sent ahead of me, and I'm just stepping into it. So when I say that all things are working for my good, I have this expectation because I'm already setting up the scene. And it's interesting because I've been, ever since I had that conversation with Dr. Brown, and he started talking about the guy who, I had heard about this guy who does the remote viewing and is able to send his consciousness to other places, right? Other places around the world and even out to outer space, but he's able to project. And so I used to try to do that to some degree. But it's really interesting because I don't necessarily, so what I do is even if I don't know what the room looks like, in the key house, this thing said something about they could walk it through any door that they had seen before, right? It's as if you've got to visualize this portal, and they can, if you saw it before, you can walk through it. But even that, with that, even if I haven't seen it before, even if I don't know if I'm going to the 14th floor or whatever, I am, even before I get there, I'm projecting into a space. And what I'm seeing is love. I'm seeing people responding to me well. Now, sure enough, I've gotten places and somebody look at you like, what's she doing here? But even them, I'm just sitting up there thinking to myself, you just don't recognize me. Boo, I was loving you before I walked in the room. And so I stay in that. I don't let other people throw me off of what I've already projected in there, So, and I think that works in any scenario we may be going into, whether it's a meeting that we have, or some people will already have their perceptions about, how they want to receive you, but do not be swayed by other people's estimations or opinions, right? Just learn how to hold your truth. Hold your truth and stand in that. And in spite of what they might, because, so many people get jaded. They get jaded. They see, they see a man, or they see a black man, or they see a black woman, or they see, certain things about a person. They see you in a neighborhood, they see you in a setting, and they make assumptions based on those things. And And never do I get off of my mark because it's my truth. My truth is I am love. And I don't care if you see me, on the strip or wherever, that I'm holding into that. So just, yeah, have an amazing experience down there. So yesterday, I want to talk a little bit about um, yesterday, because I thought to myself about this. Um, when I was talking yesterday, I talked a little bit about the things that we are learning, like our teachers and all of that stuff. Um, Okay, so Michael says that he loves me as a sister from the first podcast he's seen, and been watching and listening to you every chance you get. Well, thank you. I'm so glad that I'm glad that it resonates with you. Um, I always tell people I do this because it blesses me, and the fact that it spills over and blesses somebody else is extraordinary. So thank you for that. So there is this, when I think about who our teachers are, y'all know I love to read. Whether I'm listening to a book or whether I'm reading a book, I love to read. Sometimes I will tell you that I wish we learned the art of distillation, boiling it down to its essential parts. A lot of times, and I know I do this, I have this tendency to talk for an hour, but the real meat of it is probably 7 minutes worth of stuff, right? And so this process of figuring out how to distill things down to the core or the essence is an amazing thing that I think we could all learn. I know that for me, it feels like at times when I talk long, it feels like sort of like I would assume Muhammad Ali did the rope-a-dope. If you will remember about Muhammad Ali used to do this amazing shuffle around the edges of the rink. He would shuffle and he got all his fancy footwork and everything, and he dodging and ducking and all of that stuff, and then he tags and float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, right? He had that rope-a-dope thing that he does. And sometimes we don't recognize that the rope-a-dope is sort of like setting up the arena. It's getting comfortable in the thing. It may have the added effect of wearing out your opponent, but sometimes what it is that we are claiming a space by moving into that space. Um, and so I know that sometimes when I come in here and I sit down, I'm calling in my spirit from whatever things, whatever places it may have traveled through during the course of the night, or the music that I've listened to. I'm pulling all of this together, and then I am grounding down into whatever it is that is to come, so that then spirit, when spirit shows up, it's got something to travel through. When I worked for Cleveland Public Power, I worked for Cleveland Public Power for a few years, and they had what they call linemen, journeymen. They had the ground crew. They had all these different people who worked in different levels of the trucks that went out, the crews, and the electricians, the journeymen. They were, held in high esteem because they had that hands-on stuff that put them in a different position. Rarely did you see any blacks in those positions at the time that I was there. For whatever reason, they couldn't get in the union or couldn't get an apprenticeship or whatever. But I would listen because sometimes what would happen is that the crew that worked along with them knew as much or more because of their proximity to people, people's ability to have conversations, their ability to be observant and watch, and a whole plethora of different things that sometimes made even the drivers very astute as to how things worked. So, and sure enough, I know that there are nuances that sometimes are not portrayed. Like I don't perceive that just because I can do hair that I understand the science behind it. Sometimes we are busy with, there's a lot of us that cook, but it doesn't mean that we understand the science behind cooking. I didn't get that so clear until I started watching America's Test Kitchen at one point, and then saw that there was a not just following a recipe, but there were reasons why things worked, and they worked together. I didn't When I used to bake bread or started baking bread or making rolls, I didn't understand what it meant to proof yeast and why this proofing was necessary. I knew that you were supposed to take the warm water and pour the yeast in there, and then but it's like when you don't see it, when you don't see that bubbling thing. Now I know that that's an important component. I know that if I drop some sugar in there and that sugar feeds the yeast, all like it does in our bodies, I know what to look for because I learned something different. So if we're just reading a recipe, we only understand it on one level, but then as we get more information, we learn it on a different level. And so with these electricians, one of the things that I learned from the crew that was on there, they talked about the flow of energy, of electricity. And they would, sometimes they would tell me like really what they thought was innocuous information, which was always interesting to me. But one of the things that I guess one of the things that they learned about was as it flows, it needs to ground. Electricity needs a grounding point. And he says that's why if you see animals or something up on an electrical line, they're not electrocuted because they're not grounded. That means that, they don't have a place where they're touching the ground. But you put something on there that touches the ground, and now electricity is trying to find its path, so to speak, to that grounding spot. And so they talked about this one particular time where somebody was holding on to an electrical wire. Y'all, this is not something that that I don't know why I'm telling y'all this other than to point out this idea of grounding. So somebody had grabbed onto an electrical thing and they were in the process of being electrocuted, and they needed to figure out how to separate this guy from the electrical stuff. But since everybody was grounded, they couldn't, or was on the ground, they couldn't, there was no way of getting this guy unattached until one of the guys jumped out of the truck. The driver jumped out of the truck and he took off, and he sailed through the air and he pushed the guy. He hit the guy just like a linebacker would, which knocked the guy off of the wire and out of danger. And everybody was tripping about how this guy managed to do that. And he was like, my feet never touched the ground. So as long as I'm airbound, I could knock him away from the electricity. Had he touched anything that was grounded, then he would have himself been electrocuted. And so I found the whole notion of that very interesting, because a lot of times we don't understand the power. Ugh, we don't understand the power that flows and how it flows, right? And that it flows. We just walk around kind of like oblivious to the way things work. And so, when I think about that often, I think about this, that I am an earthling, like you are an earthling. And there is something amazing about being grounded. And there are so many ways in which we fail to be grounded but don't recognize it, right? Um, so, of course, they always said, as they were talking about this, don't try it, right? It's, they was talking about that guy like that fool was willing to risk his life to save somebody else's. And he did, but he did, right? Which was why they still talk about it, and use it as an example about, why whenever you have one of those buckets in the truck, or even how the truck itself sits when they're working on the thing, there is rubber and insulation everywhere to make sure that not only does the bucket not because all you need, you can have a number of things. I don't know if y'all ever worked with electricity, but you can have a number of connections that connect you indirectly into the ground, right? So if, say for instance, the truck isn't properly sitting on something, and if the bucket that they are in, the journeymen are in, has to have something in there, and they can't touch along the sides of it, they got to make sure that they are, along the side of it, because anytime something, that circuit is complete, I found myself laying on my butt in the kitchen one time. I woke up on the floor because while I was working with doing some wiring in my house, accidentally there was something that where I made a connection, and yeah. And okay, go ahead. You are good, Michael. Yes, I'm holding you in that. So send me a thing when you walk out, so you can let me know how great this went for you. I don't even know what it's about, but yes, 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 yes. That you're concerned about it. Um, Anticipate the good. Anticipate the good. Right. So, so all of these things, making sure that in order to stay safe, there has to be a disruption in that thing. But grounding in and of itself is a beautiful thing. Yesterday when I was outside, I made sure I wear these little mules that's got the back out, and sometimes when I'm out, I just make sure that I just, even if the grass is cold or it's frosty outside, I know that when I put my feet on there, there's this steam that comes up off of it, because I'm plugging in, I'm connecting, and I take every opportunity that I can get to connect, even if just for a minute, even if it's just 1 foot, to feel that, because I know that is an important grounding process that we as humans, as earthlings, as part of this thing called nature, it's an important part that all of us can do. So, there is just so much I could that I could go into about that. I don't even know why that came up. Let me read this. We're in the final days of February. As a matter of fact, we got one more day. Today is the 27th. I'm at day 607 of doing this broadcast. And yes, it's good. It's good. It's good. So let me just do this, and then I will regroup, because part of me came in here and I wanted to talk about a number of things, and it hasn't come up yet, which is interesting to me as well. So I'm going to shift my attention over to this and read this daily guide that was prepared by Reverend Raymont Anderson. Yes. So this one is called Ubiquitous Universality. Ubiquitous Universality. And this first quote that he says is attributed to Voltaire. It says, God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. So from Ernest Holmes, the philosophy of Ernest Holmes, he writes, what did we teach? It is simple. God is all there is. There isn't anything else. There never was and never will be. That is what I am. There is nothing else I can be. I am compelled to be that. So here we go with what Reverend Raymont wrote. Ubiquitous universality is understanding that God is ever present, showing up in, through, and as all that is and ever could be. What happens to an individual and collective experiences when we experience the divine right where we are? What does this understanding do in our lives when we move through the experience of a pandemic while knowing God? When we move through and heal political strife and opposition while experiencing God? When we move through and heal various conditions in our individual lives like grief, depression, addiction, or mental illness while feeling God? When we move through various climate or weather-related catastrophes while being the individualized expression of God. Holmes wrote, for only God, you and I will ever know that, for the only God you and I will ever know is the one we embody. Never forget that. And with that, we are not curious to know. Are you not curious to know how to embody God more and more, moment by moment, day by day? Is this what it means to live as religious scientists, metaphysicians, and mystics, to experience the divine magnificence, not as an outside thing, but as a core and essence, as the core and essence of our lives? When we are able to embody this, then we are more apt to be modern day Good Samaritans who serve on the construction team while building a world that works for all. As Martin Luther King Jr. believed, this beloved community is built up on the foundation of agape, the love that accepts, the love that knows, the love that seeks to actively preserve and create community. So the affirmation that goes with this is throughout the day throughout the day I pause to be mindful of my breath and of God as the ever-presence around, within, and as me, and all that is. All right. So, good. All right. So, where to from there? It's really interesting. It's really interesting. Yesterday, I told a tale that I had heard from Bayo Akamolafe. Akamolafe. About a character called Al Diwali. And in the midst of talking about that, some of the revelations from it came to mind that just kind of surrounded me, and I felt like a lot of times things like that minister to us, the stories, the tragedies. A lot of times we hear, I don't know about you, we hear about stories or myths that have transcended time for whatever reason. This morning I read about the story of Pandora's box once again. And in the story of Pandora's box, you might recall that Pandora was given a gift from Zeus, and it was almost like a I don't want to call it a gag gift because it was a gift. It was a gift given by a god. And in the story, the way that it goes, when Pandora opened up this beautiful chest, out of it flies what in the way that it's portrayed, out of it flies a bunch of bats. The bats were symbolic or something that brought pestilence, illness, disease, violence, strife, different things into the world. It brought, say for instance, we were living in the Garden of Eden at one time, and then just like the Buddha was lived on a compound where he was not allowed to see any of the the atrocities of the world. He didn't see aging. He didn't see sickness. He didn't see poverty. All that he, was destined to see, that his father wanted him to see, was the good of the world, were people who loved him and all of these other things. And then by chance, one day he got an opportunity to see beyond the walls that he was confined in, and saw that there was something else in the world, and he set out to see that. Pandora opens this box, and it brings all of the things that are happening in the world, all of those. She feels as though she let out of this proverbial box, this chest that was gifted to her. But it said, ironically, the last thing that flew from that box after all of the things went out into the world, ironically, the last thing that came out was hope. So if you could imagine opening up a chest and all of these terrible things coming out, and then the last thing, and those were portrayed as bats, and the last thing to come out is the butterfly, or this idea of hope coming into the world. In spite of all that we see around us, that there is still hope. And so if we focus in on what is bad, if we focus in on what can go wrong, we're focusing in on all of the other stuff, but there's still hope. And hopefully what it is that keeps us moving forward is that tomorrow doesn't have to be like today, or today doesn't have to be like yesterday. Yesterday ended last night. And so if we keep hope in our focus, we won't get caught up on all of what we perceive as wrong in the world. We will be able to see that in spite of what may transpire, that there is still the opportunity to see all that is good. The sun rises every morning to remind us that, darkness is not the truth. It's the light that is. Sun doesn't rise, we turn to it. The earth, the planet, we spin towards it. And so we get to spin towards hope when we so choose. We get to turn our vision, to turn our gaze towards that. And as we remember that we do have that power, that we do have the ability to comprehend in the midst of the dark times that we go through, that hope is still there. We get to, that's our superpower. That's our wonderment. And as we plug into and stay grounded in that truth, what I trust is that you'll see that you do have that ability to transform the world that you look at by what you choose to focus in on. So I don't know what anybody is dealing with. I know that, we all get exactly what we need for our own personal growth. And so whatever it is that you're dealing with, if it's, it could be anything. It could be bills, it could be relationships, it could be your business, it could be employees, employer, it could be love and friendship, it could be any number of things. But always seeing that hope is the truth, that hope is always possible, that what you desire is always possible. And the moment you recognize that, and that it is, that that we spin toward it. It's a choice we make. It's something that we get to choose over and over again. And when you make that choice, when you choose that, it's so beautiful. Because what I know is, like I started out talking about this thing of faithing as an activity. What I've found is when I move towards it, not sitting up waiting, not sitting up thinking like, oh, it's gonna show up right on time, or it's going to happen like this. But I walk. My journey towards is a journey of expectancy. And that expectancy has power to it. Oh my gosh, it has so much power to it. We will rise. We will rise to meet it. Not sitting up waiting, not back in a position of repose, but of expectancy. And so, I hope that, every day you wake up with that same level of hope and anticipation for the good that is about to unfold for you. If you get in the habit of expecting, the negative, then that will be what meets you. But hope. Somebody, I heard somebody say, hope seems so passive. But one of the things that I've learned is that it's not that it is passive. Hope is amazing. It's amazing. It clears a way, it cuts a path towards that which you desire. Not the opposite. It cuts a path, clears a pathway. Almost like in the movies that you see, it clears a path. You know what? Let me and before, because I'm about to, I'm wrapping it up. But before I go, I watched this. I thought it was going to be a silly movie on Netflix this past weekend about, I think it's called We Have a Ghost. We Have a Ghost or something like that. And I didn't know what exactly the movie was going to be about. It was this black family that's moving into this old house that was haunted. And they had a ghost in the house. And the way that the story unfolded, it had such a great um it was such a great plot. It was rich with meaning and an opportunity for us to really look at how it is that we see one another and how we show up in the world. I was really thrilled at the silly movie that had so much richness to it. So, if you get a chance, it's a good little show, and hopefully it will be heartwarming for you too, and will make you think about the role that people play in your life, right? The role that they play. Are people just there to be used, or is there something more? Do we have the ability to, as Vanita says, Sabona, I see you, to see people and to make it more than just about our selfish selves, to make it about them too. I just think that it was such a cute movie, and that there was a part of me that wished that I could have watched it with some young folks to talk about what came out of that for me, and to see, what they would have done. It's just a interesting show. And then to turn around, and yesterday they had a segment on Sunday morning, and they talked about a young man. I don't know his name offhand. Maybe I'll have to look it up. And on Sunday morning, but they talked about this young man whose mother dropped him and his sister off on the side of the road and abandoned them. And it says that they jumped around from foster home to foster home and have really just had a rough start to their life. If you can imagine, how traumatic that would be for anybody to be abandoned by your parent. And eventually they were adopted by a family. And the it talks about how, the what had happened to these kids through foster care and other places, being caught up in the system, that they didn't have the anticipation or expectation that they didn't have the hope that anything would be good. And so the mother gave the son, is a white family that adopted these two black kids. And the mother gave this kid an assignment and asked him manage to do one nice thing for somebody. And he was like, why should he? And very resistant to it, was like, no, basically no. And so she, I guess the thing that she was like, well, can you just possibly hold a door for somebody? Like, would you just hold a door for somebody? Can you just do that as a way of extending yourself? And he managed to hold a door, and then he held the door, and then he held the door at church, and then he held the door at different places, and then he realized that doing things for people really felt good for him. And so the story takes off from there. So Um, Sometimes all we need is a glimmer of hope. Sometimes all we need to do is look around us and see that what we thought might have been the truth doesn't necessarily have to be. And that if we could just have the hope, right? You know, I'm always talking about I believe in the goodness of people because I've seen the goodness of people. But I recognize not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has the ability to send out love and anticipate the good even before they get there. I don't know what anybody is confronting or where they're at or where they're going through. I don't know. I could be walking around here with, like, you know, with rose-colored glasses on, and everybody else is saying, "Wow, Sandra, don't you see?" Yeah, no, I don't. Right? That's where I choose to be, to see, to look through hopeful eyes on a world filled with love and happiness and joy. And so, hopefully, I can bring some of that love and happiness, joy and hope into your life on a regular basis, on a daily basis. I'll continue to show up if you do. All right, so with that, I'm getting off of here. I get to go to. I got a lot on my plate today. I get to get my radio show in. I have my Lenten class coming up. I've got reading to catch up on. I've got a training that I'm doing this week. Yay! And I've got to get that. I get to get that information in today. So just all kinds of things that are just on my plate, juicy stuff, as well as the stuff for the church, Renaissance Unity. All of that today. So I hope you have an amazing day. It's Monday and the last Monday of the month, and it's only the second to the last day of this month. I am wishing you all the best for today. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, and yeah, have an amazing day. I trust all things are working